Hello, beautiful children. It is amazing to see you in my mind's eye. I hope you're all well and enjoying school. I heard that some of you are even having little trips to amazing places like Legoland. I hope it wasn't too windy in Legoland if you did go for such a wonderful trip with your school. Okay, so are we ready to roll back the time? Rolling back the time, and one more, rolling back the time, and one more, rolling back the time, and thinking and thinking and thinking. I've got my t-shirt on and I'm ready to talk about the two Parashiot, the Parashiot of Behar and Bechukotai in the third book of the Torah called Vayikra. Na 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 na. I'm not being mean and nasty because we mustn't do that. What do we sing? What do they sing in Shul? We haven't sort of seen that happening. But in Shul, when you get to the end of a book, we're getting to the end of the third book, the book of Vayikra. Chazak, chazak, v'nit, chazek. Be strengthened, go further. So that's the message. Okay, so let's see how quickly we can whiz through. For those of you who are lucky to come to my children's service this Shabbat, please God, there will be two laminates. This one is about Shemitah from Parashat Behar. So what can we tell you about Shemitah? Well, it occurs every 7 years, during which time the farmers cannot plant, they cannot sow, they cannot plough or work the ground. All loans, in this week's Parsha, we learn about it, all loans were forgiven at the end of the year. And then we had something else. Not only did we have Shemitah that came every 7th year, but if you do 7 times 7, that's very hard. I wonder if we can do that. Do you know how to do that? 7 times 7, you will get to this number. 49, and that would be the 7th Shemitah. And after the 7th Shemitah, we would have something we don't have anymore called a... So in the 50th year, we would have a Yovel. And in the Yovel, the land would go back to its original owner. And servants in the olden days, Jewish people who had fallen on hard times or who had done something naughty like stealing and couldn't pay it back, they would be in service, hopefully with another Jewish family who would treat them very well. That's why they didn't mind being servants, not slaves, because that's a totally different, terrible thing. But they were in service. But if they were in service and happy, and even they'd had something put through their ear to stay on after the Shemitah year, when it came to the Yovel year, they all had to go back home. They couldn't be working anymore in the Yovel year. Okay, so what else can we say about the Shemitah? Well, there are different types of things that grow. There's fruit, children, and there are vegetables. And fruit, kind of an apple tree, well, you don't have to do much. It's up in the tree and the apple grows and then you enjoy it and pick it. But before Jewish farmers get any ideas, this produce is free for all. The farmer could only take out enough apples for what he needed from his, what's it called, the place where there's loads of apples? Do you know what it's called? It's called, it rhymes with forward a bit, it's called an orchard. So the farmer would only be allowed to collect the fruit that he needed for that day from the orchard. And since this fruit is holy, you couldn't just dump the peels and the pips and things like that, the core. You have to let them go back into the soil naturally. So nowadays, there's such a connection between Shemitah and the environment and looking after the land, looking after the people. Vegetables, on the other hand, absolute no-no. You cannot, I mean, I don't know. I've never really tried to have vegetables grown on an allotment. But if you ask people who grow vegetables on an allotment, they will tell you that vegetables don't just grow themselves. You have to really put a lot of effort, a lot of input in it. So you can't have those at all. And nowadays in Israel, we have all these lovely rabbis who are able to make sure that everybody is keeping Shemitah in the way that we should. What about houses? Well, even houses at the time of Yovel in the 50th year, it was also a signal, as I've explained, for all the land in Eretz Israel in Israel to revert back to its original owners. Now, when Bnei Israel first came into Israel, each family, all the tribes, got portions, didn't they? And for 50 years, that land could be leased or sold, rented from one person to another. But every owner knew that in the 50th year, the land would have to go back to the original owner. But selling a house was a different story. If the house was in a city that was walled in the time of Yehoshua, after Moshe, there was a leader called Yehoshua. So when Joshua or Yehoshua originally conquered the land of Israel, then the seller had a year to change his mind and buy the house back before he loses his options, and the new owner gets to keep the property forever. If the house was in a non-walled city, the house is treated as land and may be redeemed any time and reverts back to their original owners at Yovel. However, let's sing the 12 tribes. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zevulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Yosef, and Binyamin. These are the 12 Shevatim. Well, Levi had how many cities did Levi settle in throughout Israel? 48 cities. And if a Levi sells his house in one of those cities, it is returned to him during Yovel. So the Torah warns us that we must be very careful to charge properly when selling property in Eretz Yisrael, and a landowner must calculate according to how many years are left to Yovel and set a price accordingly. So those were all the rules about Yovel and about Shemitah. Okay, fine. There are other rules and laws that I'm not going to go into really in my children's service because I won't have the time. It's a very quick service. But I'll tell you now, watch your words. Be careful. If you've got a little brother or a sister and they think 5 and 5 is 100, don't say, oh, you're so stupid, you're so silly, you don't know how to add up. Please don't be unkind. Just understand that they get mixed up and very patiently explain that 5 and 5 make 10. Well done. The Torah also teaches us that it's a mitzvah to loan money to people in need. Of course, people that will pay it back when they can and if they can, but to loan people money when they need it, it's a big mitzvah, but not to take something called interest. So what's that? Well, if I give you £5 and I say I want £10 back, that's interest of £5. We're not allowed to do that. Okay, that's very good. And so we know also that the Torah just reminds us not to build pillars or to kneel down on a stone floor while davening, because this is the way that other people used to serve idols, which clearly we don't serve. And so therefore the only stones a Jew can kneel down on are the stones of the floor of Hashem's special house, which was called the Bet HaMikdash, and which we no longer have. Right. Rolling on to Bechukotai. What am I going to tell you about Bechukotai? Well, there's so many things I could tell you, but what I've decided to tell you instead is, in the olden days, there were some very funny people who did some really silly things with worshipping idols and giving themselves as presents to all their gods, which is very silly. But instead of that, what the Jewish people could do if they wanted to, they could give Hashem a present, not a korban, but a present of how much value they would be worth. So let's start with little baby girls. I've got some lovely little young baby girls here, and young, very small young girls. So if you were a month old to 5 years old, how much would you be worth? Well, Mr. Cohen, 1 shekel, 2 shekels, 3 shekels. I'm giving you 3 silver shekels, how much I would be worth. And thank you very much for that, Mr. Cohen. You can use it for your Bet Mikdash, for your Mishkan. You can use it for that. Have we got a famous Jewish girl who was 3 that I can think of? Well, SPS, some people say, aka also known as the Midrash, that Rivka was 3. Yes, one of our foremothers, Rivka, was 3 when she met Yitzhak. Okay, let's see if I can find somebody else. A little boy or a baby boy. How lovely. A baby boy or a very young boy aged 1 month to 5 years old.
And how much would he be worth? Well, he would be worth 5. If I got that right way, 5 silver shekels. I'm going to donate to the Mishkan or the Bet HaMikdash 5 silver shekels, the worth of a 1-month baby boy to 5 years old. And I wonder who we can think of as a famous example of a special little boy. Well, SPS, some people say, aka also known as the Medrash, that Abraham was 3 years old when he realized that everybody was serving idols and he didn't believe in them. He knew they weren't real. Isn't that incredible, children? Let's carry on. Some little bit older girl now. So we're going from the age of females from the age of 5 to 20 years old. And how much would they be worth if they or their mummies and daddies wanted to give a present of their value to the Mishkan or the Bet HaMikdash? Well, the very famous example was a very special girl called Anne Frank, Zichronah Livracha. And unfortunately, she lived through a time that some of the Jews were treated very, very badly during the run-up and in the Second World War. And it's called the Holocaust. And when we're older, we learn a lot more about it. But it's very important, the lesson of the Holocaust is not to forget and to realize that the Jews suffered. And this beautiful girl, Anne Frank, she was good at writing. I like writing. Do you like writing? She was really, really good at writing. And just before she went into hiding, there was an amazing non-Jewish family and they wanted to help her family and some other people and they hid her. And all the time she wrote in her diary from when she was 13 to when she was 15. And unfortunately, she died when she was 60. So, 10 silver shekels. That is how much the value would be of a female from age 5 to age 20. Okay, let's move on to the boys again. Males from age 5 to age 20. How much would they be worth if they wanted to give a present, the value of themselves, to the Mishkan or the Bet HaMikdash? Well, they would be worth 20 silver shekels. And there as well, I think I'm going to use my brother's beautiful boys as an example. So I've got Levi Yitzchak, I've got Nachman Dov, and I've got Eliezer Laser, who very recently had a bar mitzvah. Woohoo! All the way in Israel. I couldn't be there, but I really missed it. And I'm sure he was wonderful. And I'm sure a lot of you children have bar and bat mitzvahs that you can't go to at the moment still, because we're waiting for COVID to go away and don't come back another day. And please God, soon when we all have our vaccines, we might be able to have more and more and more smachot. Woohoo! And go places and see things when it's safe. Wouldn't that be amazing? Anyway, so that's that age group. How about my age group? I'm being very careful. Ladies from age 20 to 60. So that's most of our mummies and daddies, and that also, thank God, includes me. So there you go, all our mummies and daddies, all our mummies and me. So how much would a female be worth? 10 and 20 make 30 silver shekels if we wanted to contribute our worth to the Mishkan or to the Bet HaMikdash. How amazing is that? Right, let's come on for the daddies. Here we go. These are all the daddies. Hopefully your daddy falls within this age group with any luck. Age 20 to age 60. And the daddy would be worth 50 silver shekels because the daddies can do a lot more lifting and they can do a lot more mitzvot and they can do a lot more things, so they need to pay more money. That's how I look at it. Okay, let's have a look at the females. Now I'm going to be very careful here because this is the oldest age group. This is age 60 plus. We have to be very careful about people who are older.
It's considered very rude to ask an older person how old they are, so we don't ask them. But I'm going to give an example of a very famous actress. So it's not somebody's grandma, and hopefully nobody will take offence. She would be worth 15 silver shekels, or even 10 silver shekels, or even 15 silver shekels, depending on what your belief is. I'm going to say 15. And one example of a very famous actress who's actually very good, and she's done theatre and radio and she's on the news, is Maureen Lipman. So Maureen Lipman, I know I've never met you, but I hope you don't mind me using you as a very successful, wonderful Jewish person who, if you'd been around at the time of Hashem's special tent called the Mishkan, or Hashem's special house called the Bet HaMikdash, you could have given 15 silver shekels. That would have been your value, even with the radio and the TV that was going to come later. Fabulous. And who can I use for the grandpas aged 60 and over? I have to be very careful not to ask them how old they are. So I'm not going to use anybody specific, their grandpa, and they would be worth as well 15 silver shekels. So the ladies would be worth 10 and they would be worth 15. And let me get my 15 out. 15 for the men and probably 10 for the ladies. Okay, and who can I think of as the male? Well, some of the grandpas might have liked a program called Star Trek, which was all about funny space and out of space things. And there is an actor who I believe is still alive today called William Shatner, and he is Jewish and he is over the age of 60. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I'm sorry I got a bit muddled about the ladies over 60. I think they're 10 shekels and the men over 60 are 15 shekels. But I just got so excited with the Monopoly money. So I hope you've enjoyed, very much enjoyed this Parsha. Listen to your mummies and daddies and do what they say. Listen to your mummies and daddies, please don't forget to pray. Listen to your mummies and daddies, the rabbis lead the way. Then they will be happy. I do hope I get to see one or two of you, but I hope to see 15 of you on Shabbat and over Shavuot, etc. So just keep learning, keep being happy, and hopefully we'll see each other very soon. And you've got this video instead of seeing me in person if you can't book. Take care. Bye.